So starting off, I would like to answer a question, what is BS? BS is, well, I am not supposed to say the actual word here because it's actually a term in philosophy, but it's school inappropriate. So I hope you know what BS stands for, but in case you're lost, here are some synonyms. Talking rot, obfuscation, and the closest one to a real thing, bullcrap. So now that you kind of have some idea of what we're talking about here, let's jump into the more detailed definition. Some people might confuse BSing with lying, but philosopher Henry Frankfurt, an emeritus professor at Princeton University, wrote in his book on BS. Lying is different from BSing. While a liar might be trying to convince you of something that's the opposite of the truth, the BSer has no regards to the truth. Also, the BSer, while BSing, tries to conceal the fact that he or she has no regards to the truth. But someone called BS on this definition. G.A. Cohen, a professor at Ossos College, Oxford, said that when looking at BS, we should not consider the BSer's mentality. Instead, we should look at the content itself and see if the truth is obscured within it or not. If we think about it, these two are actually talking about different types of BS. Henry Frankfurt's definition relates closely to daily life, since we get to see the people since we get to see the BSer themselves, while J. Cohen's definition fits more with the academic side, while we sometimes can only read the papers of the BSers. So keep both these definitions in mind as we run through some examples for this presentation. Now, I'm sure all of us have come across BS at some point in our lives before, whether it's in conversations, advertisements, corporate jargon, or even speeches. But the arts of BSing is not just restricted to words and text. BS is also in data. Take a look at this chart. This is Tim Cook's cumulative iPhone sales chart in his presentation to his shareholders in 2014. As we can see, there is no vertical range. So we can't tell if the sales of iPhones is in the tenths or the billions. It's impossible to tell. Also, cumulative iPhone sales are not really helpful here, since it can only go up, and it's not taking into consideration of the iPhones that are not in use anymore. Here's another chart. We're looking at the bottom here. It's not as impressive, is it? Looking at the last 2 quarters of 2013, we can see that the iPhone sales are declining a bit, which kind of explains why Tim Cook, while presenting to his shareholders, chose the more impressive chart. Another part of data BS is something known as the false cause fallacy, which is when people confuse or ignore correlation with causation, like this. Divorce rate in Maine correlates with per capita consumption of margarine. The red line is the divorce rate, and the black line is the consumption of the spread. And I can go ahead now and write a paper on how divorce causes people to want to eat margarine less, but does one really correlate with another? They don't. It's ridiculous. Correlation does not mean causation. That was kind of ridiculous, right? But the humor really gets lost when BSing becomes something more serious. For example, the Pizzagate conspiracy theory of comet ping pong. If you don't know about this theory became viral in 2016 during the US presidential elections. And the theory claims that Hillary Clinton was running a pizzeria that was secretly a child sex trafficking ring. It's false, but some people believed it. And the New York Times reported that within hours of the theory becoming viral, the shop owner was receiving death threats over Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And over the course of the following days, the employees and the shop owner were continuously harassed. But some people took it even more seriously. On December 4th, 2016, one man actually went to a pizzeria with a rifle in hand, and he fired 3 shots inside. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and he later got arrested, but it shows how serious some of these things can become. Now, some people might label a story not as BS, but as fake Fox News. It is, but I believe that at least the original theory or article was BS. And it's like the telephone game. The original theory was BS, and later on, as it spreads out, the BS becomes worse through each person's mouth and ears. And BSing is getting out of hand. One more thing about BSing is that it is closely related to each of us. And one thing I've noticed is that BSing thrives in an academic environment. How many of you have BS inside an academic environment before? Well, I have as well. So it's kind of ironic and hypocritical for me to stand here and talk about this, but this does not invalidate my points or reasoning. The reason I believe BSing is getting, the reason I believe that there's so much BS in school is because it's rewarding. Which one do you think gets better? Preparing all weekend for a presentation, or just conjure up some BS 5 minutes for a presentation if you get similar results? I mean, for BSing to work, there's just a baseline of things that you will have to know. Some keywords maybe, some common arguments you can jump to. With the help of Google, that is easy to achieve. The hard part is that you have to make everything sound logical. And if you can get around that, 1 or 2 logical fallacies will not be noticeable for most people, especially if you present all that out in a confident manner. Some people might think BSing in school is okay, but since what we create in school now often stays in school. But I don't think this it justifies BS in school, since schools prepares you for society and life beyond. And if you come out of school learning how to BS, then it might create those examples of BSing which I've just shown you. This needs to change. Henry Frankfurt once wrote that one of the most salient features of our culture is that there is so much BS. Everyone knows this, and each of us contributes his share. So what if we don't contribute our share or stop others from contributing? So one effective way of stopping BS is to call out your own BS or others' BS. And by doing this, we're creating a world with less BS. A world where the truth will not be obscured, and a world where everything is much more direct. It will be a world where information, whether in charts a lot or not, is reliable. And finally, I think that eliminating BS is an act that will push humanity towards a greater truth, if there is one. Thank you.